It was a warm summer night in Virginia. Nabra Hassanen, just 17 years old, had spent the evening in prayer with friends. They laughed, they walked, they felt safe. But in a matter of minutes, everything changed. A stranger appeared. A confrontation began. And before sunrise, Nabra was gone. This is the story of a young girl whose life was stolen in the most brutal way, and a case that still leaves many unanswered questions. It was June 18th, 2017, the middle of Ramadan, the holiest month for Muslims. Nabra and her friends had just left their mosque in Fairfax County, Virginia, after late-night prayers. It was close to 4 a.m., and they were heading to a nearby restaurant to grab food before the next prayer. They were just teenagers, walking together, enjoying the quiet of the night. But then, a car pulled up. A man inside started arguing with them. No one knew him. No one knew what he wanted. But suddenly, he got out of the car, and he had a weapon. In seconds, everything spiraled out of control. The group ran, but Nabra couldn't escape. He grabbed her, attacked her, and just like that, she was gone. Hours later, her body was found in a pond. Her family was shattered. Her community was in shock. And the biggest question remained, why did this happen? Welcome to True Crime Stories videos. I welcome you, my viewers, and most especially my subscribers, for your support as we keep improving and bringing you daily told and untold true crime stories. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Nabra Hassanen was more than just a headline. She was a daughter, a friend, a bright, loving 17-year-old girl with her whole life ahead of her. She lived in Reston, Virginia, a quiet suburban town where she was surrounded by family and a strong, tight-knit Muslim community. Her parents described her as kind, outgoing, and full of life. She loved to laugh, she loved to spend time with her friends, and, like many teenage girls, she had big dreams for the future. She was the eldest daughter in her family, the one her younger siblings looked up to, the one her parents depended on. She was known for her warm smile and big heart, the kind of person who made you feel welcome the moment you met her. And like so many young Muslim girls, her faith was an important part of her life. At the time of her death, it was Ramadan, a sacred month for Muslims, a time of prayer, reflection, and community. For Nabra and her friends, that night was supposed to be special. They had just finished Taraweeh prayers, the late-night prayers that are unique to Ramadan. And after prayers, they did what so many young people do during this time. They walked together, talking, laughing, and looking forward to their pre-dawn meal before the next fast. It was a moment of peace, joy, and togetherness. But in a world where monsters don't always hide in the dark, peace can be shattered in an instant. When Nabra left her home that night, her parents expected her to come back. She was supposed to return, to sit with her family, to share another meal before the day's fast began. But she never did. One moment, she was a normal teenager, surrounded by people she loved. The next, she was gone. And for her family, for her community, and for anyone who has ever loved a child, her loss is something that will never make sense. Because no one should have to bury their child, and no 17-year-old girl should have her life stolen in such a cruel and senseless way. But what really happened that night? And who was the man who took her away? It was the early hours of June 18th, 2017. The streets of Fairfax County, Virginia, were quiet, still. Nabra Hassanen and her friends had just finished breaking their fast and attending late-night prayers at the All-Dulles Area Muslim Society, Adams Mosque. Like so many young people during Ramadan, they weren't ready to go home just yet. They laughed, they walked. They planned to stop by a nearby McDonald's before heading back for their next prayer. They were just kids enjoying a peaceful night. But someone else was out there too. Someone watching. Someone waiting. Down the road in a car, Darwin Martinez Torres sat behind the wheel. a 22-year-old man, alone, angry, looking for trouble. At first, he was just a stranger in a car, but in a matter of seconds, he would become something far worse. As Nabra and her friends walked along the sidewalk, Torres suddenly pulled up beside them. And then, it began. According to police, Torres started harassing the group. It's unclear what set him off. Was he drunk, enraged, looking for a fight? Authorities later called it a road rage incident. But was that really the whole truth? A grown man, alone, in his car, at 4 a.m., and the group he chose to target? A group of teenagers, a group of Muslim teenagers. He could have driven away. He could have let them be. But instead, he got out of his car, and he had a weapon. The moment Torres stepped toward them, fear took over. The teenagers did what any of us would do. They ran, scattered in different directions, their hearts pounding, their minds racing, just trying to get away. But Nabra didn't make it. Torres caught her, grabbed her, and then he attacked. Nabra's friends, still running, still desperate to escape, didn't see everything. But what they did see would haunt them forever. One moment, she was right there with them. The next, she was gone. Someone called 911. Someone ran back to the mosque. The community mobilized immediately, searching the streets, praying they would find her alive. But deep down, they already knew. This wasn't just a case of a girl who got lost. This was something far more terrifying. And by the time the police arrived, it was already too late. How did Torres get away? And what did he do next? In the next part of this story, we'll uncover the terrifying details of what happened after Nabra was taken, and how investigators pieced together the brutal crime that shocked an entire nation. As dawn broke over Fairfax County, a nightmare was unfolding. By the time Nabra's friends made it back to the ADAMS mosque, the panic had already set in. She was missing, and they knew something was terribly wrong. Within hours, police were on the scene. Helicopters hovered over the streets. K9 units sniffed through the woods. Officers scoured every corner of the area, hoping for any sign of Nabra. Her family, waiting, praying, dreading. Every passing second felt like a lifetime. Then, at 3 p.m., nearly 12 hours after she vanished, authorities found something. And no one was ready for what they were about to uncover. Just 3 miles from where she was last seen, officers arrived at a pond. Still, murky. It was the kind of place you'd drive past without a second thought. But that day, it became the site of something horrific. As officers approached the water's edge, they saw something floating, a lifeless body. And when they pulled it from the water, the worst fears became a gut-wrenching reality. It was Nabra. The horror didn't stop there. Authorities later revealed that Nabra's injuries told a chilling story. She hadn't just been attacked. She had been brutally beaten. Her family spokesperson, Abbas Sharif, later shared the gruesome details. She was hit in the head, beaten with a baseball bat. And then, her body was thrown into the water. There was no mercy, no hesitation, just pure, unimaginable violence. As the news spread, shockwaves rippled through the community. At the Adams Mosque, grief turned into horror. This was supposed to be a holy month, a time of peace, prayer, and reflection. Instead, they were now facing a devastating loss. Parents held their children closer. Young Muslim girls wondered, could this have been me? And the biggest question lingered in the air like a storm cloud. Was this really just road rage? Or was it something more? The investigation was only beginning, and what it would reveal would shake the community to its core. What was Torres's real motive? And why did authorities shut down the possibility of a hate crime so quickly? In the next part, we uncover the unsettling police response, and why the case left so many unanswered questions. As the investigation unfolded, the Fairfax County Police Department quickly took a stance. Their conclusion? This was not a hate crime. Instead, they claimed Nabra's murder was the result of a random road rage incident, a violent outburst that happened by chance. But for many, that explanation didn't sit right. The Muslim community, civil rights activists, and thousands of people across the country began asking, was it really just road rage? Or was there something far more sinister at play? Here was a young Muslim girl, walking with her Muslim friends, in the middle of Ramadan, targeted by a man in a car. And yet, authorities shut down any discussion of a possible hate crime almost immediately. Why? Did they not want to acknowledge the possibility? Or were they afraid of what the answer might reveal? Families in the area had every reason to be alarmed, because history had shown this wasn't the first time hate crimes had been ignored. 3 young Muslim students, Dea Barakat, Yusor Abu Salha, and Razan Abu Salha, were murdered in their own apartment. The shooter's motive? Officially, it was over a parking dispute. But many believed the real reason was Islamophobia. Just weeks before Nabra's murder, 3 men were stabbed while defending 2 young Muslim women being harassed on a train. For many, these cases proved one thing: hate crimes happen, and too often they are downplayed. Legal analysts, criminologists, and activists all weighed in. Many pointed out key signs that this was more than just road rage. The level of violence. Most road rage incidents involve quick, impulsive aggression. But this was relentless. The location and time. A young Muslim girl was attacked while walking from a mosque during Ramadan. The police response. By immediately dismissing hate as a factor, authorities shut down the conversation before it could even begin. For many, the message was clear. If this wasn't a hate crime, then what was it? Even today, questions remain. Did Torres specifically target Nabra because she was Muslim? Did authorities ignore key evidence to avoid public backlash? And most importantly, how many more cases like this have been brushed aside? Because for Nabra's family, for her community, for every young girl who saw themselves in her, the answers matter. And justice shouldn't be just a matter of convenience. But what about the killer? Who was Darwin Martinez Torres? And what did his past reveal about the kind of man capable of such a horrific act? To understand this horrific crime, we need to ask, who was Darwin Martinez Torres? At the time of the murder, Torres was 22 years old, living in Sterling, Virginia. He was originally from El Salvador, but little was known about his life before coming to the US. What we do know is that he was a troubled man with a violent streak. People who knew him described him as aggressive, short-tempered, and unpredictable. And that night, on June 18, 2017, his anger would turn deadly. After Nabra's friends escaped, they ran straight to the All Dulles Area Muslim Society Adams Center for help. Community members quickly called 911, and within hours, police launched a full-scale search. Helicopters scanned the area. K9 units tracked possible scents. Officers searched every possible hiding place. By the afternoon, authorities had a suspect in custody. And it didn't take long before Torres confessed. He admitted that he had attacked Nabra, that he had beaten her, and that he had dumped her body in a pond. Torres was charged with first-degree murder. But why did he do it? Authorities claimed it was a random act of road rage. Yet, many still believed there was a deeper, more disturbing truth. Was Nabra specifically targeted because of her hijab? Did Torres have a history of violence against women or Muslims? And if this was just random anger, why such extreme brutality? These were the questions lingering as the case moved to trial. As the case gained national attention, prosecutors made a chilling revelation. Torres had a history of abusing women. His girlfriend came forward saying she had suffered years of physical and emotional abuse at his hands. To her, Torres wasn't just an angry driver. He was a predator. And that night, Nabra was his victim. After months of legal battles, Torres faced the court. He pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty. And in March 2019, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For some, it was justice. For others, it was too little, too late. Because no sentence, no punishment could ever bring Nabra back. Nabra's family will never stop grieving. Her community will never forget. And even today, people still wonder, did law enforcement dismiss the real motive? Could Nabra's murder have been prevented? And how many other victims like her never get the justice they deserve? Because this case wasn't just about one girl. It was about a system that too often looks the other way. And for many, Nabra's death was a tragic reminder of a much bigger problem. But Nabra's story doesn't end here. Because even in death, her voice still echoes. Her family, her friends, and her community refuse to let her be forgotten. And in our final chapter, we explore the lasting impact of her tragic loss, and the change her story continues to inspire. Nabra Hassanen should have had her whole life ahead of her. She was just 17 years old, a daughter, a friend, a beloved member of her tight-knit Muslim community in Virginia. Her death was more than just a tragedy. It was a wake-up call. In the days following her murder, thousands gathered for candlelight vigils, not just in Virginia, but across the country. People who had never met Nabra mourned her loss, holding signs that read, "Justice for Nabra." Her life mattered. We will not forget. Her family established charities in her name, raising awareness about violence against young women. And her friends. They still speak her name, ensuring she is never erased. Nabra's life was stolen, but her story lives on. For many, Nabra's murder left behind a haunting question. Could this happen again? The harsh reality? It already has. Women, especially women of color, Muslim women, immigrant women, face violence every day. And too often, their cases are dismissed, ignored, or misclassified. The fear Nabra's community felt that night did not end with her death. It lingers. Because justice isn't just about one case. It's about making sure this never happens again. From the moment police called this a case of road rage, people started questioning the investigation. Did they dismiss the possibility of a hate crime too quickly? Was Torres's history of violence against women overlooked? And if Nabra wasn't wearing a hijab that night, would this case have been treated differently? These are the questions that still haunt her case. Because when authorities fail to call violence what it really is, they allow injustice to continue. And for many in Nabra's community, this wasn't just one act of violence. It was part of a much bigger pattern. As we close this chapter, one thing is clear. We must never forget Nabra Hassanen. Her laughter, her kindness, her dreams. She was more than a headline. She was a girl with a future, until it was stolen from her. And the best way to honor her. Keep fighting for justice. Keep demanding answers. Keep speaking her name. Because as long as we remember her, she is never truly gone. If Nabra's story moved you, don't stay silent. Like this video. Leave a comment. What do you think? Subscribe for more true crime stories that need to be heard. Because the more we speak out, the more justice we demand. And for Nabra, we will not stop.